You're listening to Empress Conversations podcast with your host, Maggie Peary. Conversations with Maggie. Yeah, yeah. Join us next time on the next episode of Empress Conversations with Maggie. To learn more about guests or for more information on working with Maggie, go to www.empressconversationswithmaggie.com/get-started.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Empress Conversations with Maggie. Today, my guest is the lovely Kensema John. Welcome, Kensema.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. It's such a pleasure to have you. There is so much for us to dig into, but please first, let's start by telling our audience who you are and how you got started on the path that you're on.
Okay, sure thing. So again, I'm Kensema John. I am currently a doctoral student at the University of Florida. I am studying in the education department, curriculum and instruction, with the highlight in Black Girlhood Studies as well as Black immigrant experiences. I am currently have my own business on the side called Imprint Designs, where I do print on demand, pretty much on anything. And I started that pretty much during my doctoral journey, and trying to get some extra cash on the side because students do not make much money.
Stop trying to figure it all out by yourself. Let the professionals of Imprint Creations talk to you about ways your website can generate consistent monthly revenue for you so that you can live the life you love. Simply go to imprintcreations.com/contact. Fill out the form and someone will reach out to you within 24 hours.
That is so exciting. And you are so right. Being a college student, I remember those days, there was not much money available. But tell us a little bit more about the studies that you do, especially with the immigrant stories. Tell us
Sure. So I started in the education department, working on curriculum and instruction. Pretty much, how can we better the curriculum for students of color, specifically Black students? And that got me interested in the experiences of Black girls in our education system, as well as immigrant students. So my background, my parents are from the Caribbean, St. Lucia. My mom is from there. My dad's from Anguilla. My husband is also from St. Vincent, born and raised there. So it's like I hear these stories about education back in the Caribbean. And then I also hear once they come up here to the United States, how there's a big difference. We also know that living in the United States, the education system for students of colors, particularly Black students, is not really the best for us. We don't necessarily have the best experiences in the education system. So just trying to balance those two and how we can better our curriculum for these students.
there are so many layers when it comes to I'll use your term, when you said the experience is different. Let's kind of dig into a few of those layers because the educational story of someone who was born here versus an two different paths, two different experiences.
Yes.
What would you say? And not just even African or Caribbean or anything else, but if you look at the Asian story, if you look at different sides, what would you say is the one common denominator that any immigrant faces when they come to the U.S.?
One common denominator that they face is their education back in their country isn't as valued when they come up here to the States. So, for example, if a person from the Caribbean, they were in their last year of schooling before college, they would most likely have to repeat a year or two. So they'd be put in like maybe 10th grade or 11th grade, even though technically they should be in the 12th grade up here. So yeah, that's the common denominator that I see across all immigrants.
What is the best advice if someone who's an immigrant and they're thinking of relocating to the US and they're probably in that transition of either finishing high school or starting college or whatever stage they're in, what is the one piece of advice you would give them to prepare themselves for the educational system in the US?
I would definitely say the preparation books for the tests. For example, to get into college, the SAT, whichever college that you're trying to get into, I would say to take those books that they give, study those. Um, Test preparation courses, take those because it is a different system than what they are used to doing. And those test preparations are there to help. It helps even students that are up here in America get ready to take those tests. So I would say definitely do that. Don't just jump into it because it's a whole different system.
That is such a great answer. And you approach that answer from the academic side of it. Now, if we're
Mm,
to flip it with the cultural side and trying to integrate into, the schools and trying to
mm,
find a friend and trying to connect, that is another thing that can be so overwhelming,
mm,
especially if there might be a language barrier, the
mm.
accent, all of those things. In that area, what is the number one lifesaver you would throw out there for someone who's literally come over here by themselves, find themselves in a new school, new environment? What would you say? What can they do to try to acclimate and at least find one good friend?
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, I would say be yourself. There's always somebody out there that it could be going through that same experience that you're going through, and or they went through that experience. And I always hear these stories of older people that have immigrated to our country that they wish that they didn't lose their language. They wish they didn't lose their accent. They wish all these things. And it's like if they had just been themselves from when they started their journey here in the new country, those regrets might not be there.
But like with anything else, there is a little bit of pressure to try and assimilate into the environment you're in, right? You may have a thick accent from wherever the
Mm,
person came from, and then finding yourself, whether in the South or in the Northwest or somewhere,
mm,
and you stand out like a sore thumb if someone has a thick accent. Immediately, you're different. And nobody wants to be picked out of a crowd to be identified as different.
yeah.
You want to fit in. It's hard enough to try to adjust.
Yeah.
What would you say there? Because like I know that some of the bigger schools have perhaps, international departments where they can help the kids try to fit in. But what are some of the things if someone's in a smaller school that does not have those different resources?
Yeah. Honestly, you can start it yourself. There are counselors there, there are teachers there are people there that will be willing to help you get through the journey. Teachers are, they always have a special place in my heart. I taught elementary school for 7 years before I went into academia, and there are people there that really want to see you succeed.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
Mhm.
To switch it a little bit here and talk about what you do for education of immigrants and women.
Okay, yeah, sure. So like I said earlier, I am specializing in Black girlhood, and that also overlaps with immigrant experiences. So right now, I am working on my dissertation, which focuses on Black girls' experiences in education, but specifically with their hair. So Black girls are disciplined disproportionately for subjective reasoning, and a lot of those reasonings are how they dress or how they wear their hair. So even in Texas, I believe it was in February, um, it went to court for this guy that was wearing locks, and he was suspended from school. And this is 2024. He was suspended from school for wearing his hair as locks. And I'm like, Black girls, Black boys get discriminated against because of how we naturally wear our hair. Braids, extensions, all those things. Students are not able to go to school. They might not do extracurricular activities like sports. We've seen in the news where students get their hair cut because of the fact that they want to participate in a sport like wrestling, and then their hair needs to be short, so then the coach cuts their hair. Like, unheard of for other races, but for Black students, it's like, oh, that's easy. We could just do this thing. So I definitely want to find a way, especially like things like the Crown Act, how they are making sure that hair discrimination doesn't happen in the workplace. I would like to see that extension to schools.
But it does happen. hair discrimination does happen.
Yeah.
A person's appearance is there's so much discrimination on how you look. And the unfortunate part is that's the hair that comes out of your scalp. It's not as if you're doing something different. You're actually, this is as natural to you and I as it is to someone who has got blonde, curly hair, you
Yep.
know? It's the exact same thing. It's our hair. We do wear it differently. We do carry ourselves differently. And how many times have we seen on social media where a mother might put two little braids and send her baby girl off to class or daycare, and she comes back haircut or the braids combed different, and all kinds of situations. So
Yeah.
before we get into that, we'll be right back after this short break.
Stop trying to figure it all out by yourself. Let the professionals of Imprint Creations talk to you about ways your website can generate consistent monthly revenue for you so that you can live the life you love. Simply go to mprintcreations.com/contact. Fill out the form and someone will reach out to you within 24 hours.
Wow. So tell us a little bit more about your thoughts on hair discrimination in the workplace and in school.
Yeah, so definitely it has been an effect on not only students but women. Even when students get hair discriminated against in school, they carry that with them pretty much the rest of their lives. We've seen that they are more hesitant to wear their hair different, especially when they're in the workplace because they know that they've been discriminated against. It's psychologically bearing. It's just a mental strain to have to walk out of the house and be like, okay, am I going to be accepted for my hair? Or am I going to be rejected? Mhm.
What are some of the things that schools are implementing to help once that type of damage is done to a child?
Yeah, honestly, I'm not really seeing much implementation of what they would do to help in those situations, but I'm hoping with my dissertation and the work afterwards that I could find ways that we can change policy, as well as have professional developments in place so we can prevent this trauma from even happening.
And that is key word, trauma,
Yeah,
right? I
yeah.
mean, the playground can be a vicious, vicious place. I mean, if
Hey, kids are mean.
they grow up to be mean adults, and then
Yeah,
you have workplace discrimination and all kinds of things.
yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about that. Tell us about your journey in working with immigrants as they assimilate into the culture, into the workplace, and all the work that you do.
Yeah, yeah. So pretty much just trying to figure out a way that not only immigrants could be comfortable in their own skin, but as well as the people that are from here accepting, learning how to accept people for who they are, not just, oh yeah, that surface level, okay, we accept everybody, kumbaya, we love everybody, but actually having an understanding that there are people that may look different from us, but that is okay. We can still have lunch with them, we could still have conversations with them, even though we might not believe the same thing or have the same rules in our house, we can still get along.
What are your thoughts on the divide between
Mm,
African Americans and Africans? There is a divide, whether we
there
speak.
is a divide. There is a divide.
Yeah, what is your take on that? Where African Americans may feel that some Africans don't view them equally or look down upon them.
Mhm.
There's so many different takes. But let me hear from you. Let us hear from you on
Yeah.
your what you've heard and what what seen.
Yeah, so there's a lot of stereotypes from just Black immigrants. It could be African, it could be Caribbean, that come over here and have this certain viewpoint of people that have been born and raised in America. They have TV over there, they have cable, they see what's portrayed on TV. So they take these stereotypes that are in the media and they just put this blanket on everybody that has been born and raised in America, and they see America as this opportunity. And it's like, why aren't these people progressing? Why are they constantly in this state? But not everybody understands the history behind America and why there are these systems that are in place to make sure that Black people do not succeed in this country. The Jim Crow laws have been put in place a long time ago, and he stated that if we do this now, we can have them under our thumbs for years to come. And we can see that even though slavery is not a thing right now, that we are still under this oppression, that are in these systems that are in place to make sure that we do not succeed as Black people in America. And so there are people that come from other countries and come in thinking that, oh, you're not taking this opportunity that they're given to you. And it's like, no, you don't understand these systems that they put, like redlining for buying houses and whatnot. You don't see that because it's in the system. So it's hidden behind the system, but it's still there to keep us down.
Is it because that immigrants aren't held back by that system and they come to this country and succeed with education, with just even whatever job that they get into, either it's a family business, let's just say they go into gas stations or hotels or whatever industry it is in, and they always turn out to do so much better than
Mhm, mhm.
people who were sometimes born here.
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, I think there is a divide, and I wouldn't even be surprised if the divide is on purpose, for us to fight against each other instead of working together. Because just like the crabs in the barrel mentality, if they fight against each other, we don't have to fight them.
So what are some of the things that you can see to help facilitate and break down those type of barriers?
Yeah, honestly, not it would be taking those stereotypes and not believing them. So whatever you see in the media, not being a blanket statement of this is how Black people are in America, as well as learning to work together. I feel like in our community, we have so much areas of growth where we can work together. Not only as just Black Americans or Caribbean Americans or African Americans, but as a Black people that we can work together.
That is so, so good. If one of our listeners is listening and this has really got their skin and itching and they're excited and want to do something, how does one get involved? How does one get started in their own community today? What would somebody do in order to facilitate an environment to where let's begin to have the talks, let's begin
Yeah.
to break down these barriers?
Yeah, honestly, it's just that, just having talks, having conversations. You could invite a group of people together. We have this wonderful technology of Zoom. You could have a Zoom where people from all over can come together, have conversations, and figure out ways that we can move forward.
That's really, really good advice. That really is. What other areas would you say that, with the immigrant experience has really changed in the past 20 years?
I think that it, oh man, I think that social media has also played a part. The music industry has also played a part. TV shows, movies. There's been this shift because I know in elementary school there it wasn't as accepting of different Black cultures, like people from Africa or people from Caribbean. You'd get made fun of for your accent, for your food, for your clothes. But there's been this shift of like, oh, music, okay, so I like Afro beats, and stuff like that. So there has been a shift in 20 years, but I also don't think it's enough. I think we could do even more greatness and be more accepting of people that are not necessarily from here.
You made such a valid point because 20 years ago, I'm in Atlanta, 20 years ago, to turn on the popular radio station, you would
Mhm.
not hear a David O or, one of these Rhythms or one of these other
Yeah,
African
yeah.
artists that are out now, making all
Mhm.
of these Billboard hits. That was unheard of as recent as 2000. And
Yeah.
now in 2024, it is nothing to go down the street and hear somebody bumping to the latest Afro beats, but so much work to do. There is
Yes,
still
yes.
so much further that we have to go.
Yeah, yeah.
Music's great, but then there's so much more. And so when you look at it long term, in the next, no, not even short term, 5 years, in
Yeah.
the next 5 years, what would you say if you had a magic mirror? What would you say this is the area that it needs to focus in on change? That we
Mm.
didn't expect music to go this far. What do you think would be the next area that would make a big difference culturally?
Culturally, a big difference would most likely be the media. So TV shows, movies, I think that's like the greatest reach right now. Yeah, music has a good reach, but TV shows and movies also have music. So it's like having um, that access of representation from all over, like can be pushed out into the world, seeing different ways that Black people are, not just the typical stereotypes, the negative stereotypes that you see, but positive stereotypes. I think that would be a very big help.
That's actually in the when you turn on Netflix today, I can go and watch a Bollywood movie, I can watch a Nollywood movie, and it
Yeah,
could be a love story, it could be an action movie, and it's in
yeah,
English, and I don't
yeah,
have
yeah,
titles. It's already
yeah,
so that is already exciting to see. And Bollywood and Nollywood have been around for forever and a day,
yes,
even
yeah,
longer than 20 years, right? It
yeah,
just has not gotten the axis of it has just not become this abundant because
mm,
the fact that it's on a platform as big as Netflix,
yeah,
that's really cool. And that's really
yeah,
an achievement because people have recognized the power that's in Bollywood and Nollywood, you know.
yes,
So, and
yeah,
even quality, I must say, of those Nollywood movies has actually gone up. That industry has really, really done a major 360 from maybe 50 years ago when those movies first started.
definitely agree with that.
That's exciting. That's really exciting. So where is Kinesma today?
So right now I am in Florida, work at the University of Florida, trying to finish up my degree, hoping that May 2025 I'll be Dr. John. Yeah.
John,
Yes, yes. So that's what I'm working on right now.
how exciting. And how can our readers and our listening audience and viewers get a hold to you in case someone wants to get in touch and partner with you in a project?
Yeah, sure thing. So my Instagram is at KDVJohn. I also have my email, which is kinesma.john@gmail.com. Feel free to reach out and I will respond as quickly as I can.
Dr. John, that is amazing. See, I'm already calling you Dr. John.
Put it in the works, put in the works.
Exactly. You have to call it out. That is exactly what I'm doing. So that's going to be so exciting. And then you're going to be working on so much in terms of what you've been studying with the immigrant experience. And oh yeah, what was the one more thing we didn't get a chance to touch on briefly?
Mhm, mhm.
Cultural experience for teachers.
Mm.
Talk to us about that.
Yeah. So yeah, there are different teachers out there that interact with different students. Just knowing how to interact with students is a big thing. Culturally responsive teaching, even critical race theory that has been attacked constantly by different states, especially Florida, are ways that can help our teachers have a better understanding how to interact with our students.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So, what's in the cards for the future for you besides getting your doctorate?
Yeah, so my plan is to work as a professor full time. I'll also most likely keep my business on the side, entrepreneurial business of imprint designs. I would also like to have professional developments for teachers about how to prevent hair trauma in schools, as well as provide workshops for Black girls and Black women to either prevent hair trauma for Black girls or how to heal from Black trauma for Black women.
Could we get a sneak peek of what some of those programs would be like regarding head trauma and how to prevent it? What type of things, how do you cover that in one of your workshops?
Yeah, so I'm actually in the process of starting one in July as a part of my dissertation. So during that program, we'll have reflective journaling, as well as we're going to be reading through a book, Wash Day Diaries, which is a graphic novel by Jamila Rouser. We're going to be talking about different hair experiences. We're going to be doing different art projects that involve 3D art with hair accessories as well as hair extensions. So all these things to cultivate the love for our Black hair.
And this is typically for kids in school up to what age?
Yeah, so right now, this target area that I'm doing is ages 14 to 18. What I would love to do is adapt that curriculum for younger students, so like probably around the age 6 to 10, and then eventually get a curriculum going for Black women in order to heal from that Black hair trauma.
Is that something you see corporations doing, taking that to HR perhaps? Because that does happen, right? I mean,
Yeah.
but how many times, I can tell you how many times someone has said, Maggie, let me touch your hair. And
Mhm.
instinctively, I tense up and I'm like, why would you want to touch my hair? I'm not trying to touch your hair. That's my personal
Yeah.
space now. So, I've got so many stories, but it's not about me. So how does that work in corporate?
Yeah, I'm hoping that corporate would adopt something like that. If something like how my Crown and Curls is pushing, sorry, not my Crown and Curls, the Crown Act, how they are pushing the no more hair discrimination in the workplace, I would hope that something like that could be done in corporations as well.
Mm, I definitely feel I wish there would be a hat in the section of the handbook. Do not touch somebody's hair yourself, just like in kindergarten. You have to tell
Yeah, it's like keep your personal space.
exactly, exactly, exactly. This has been such a pleasure having this conversation with you today. Again, one more time, please tell our listening and watching audience how they can get in touch with you and connect.
Sure thing. My Instagram handle is at KDVJohn. And then my email address is kinesma.john@gmail.com. And it was an absolute pleasure talking with you today.
Likewise, I really appreciate your time and everything we've discussed today. I really enjoyed it. You're such a blessing and continue to do the good work and the good fight that you're in right now. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're listening to Empress Conversations podcast with your host, Maggie Peary. Conversations with Maggie. Yeah, yeah. Empress. Join us next time on the next episode of Empress Conversations with Maggie. To learn more about guests or for more information on working with Maggie, go to www.empressconversationswithmaggie.com/get-started.